Hey, beautiful soul, this is a complete full week oracle guidance, all 7 daily messages using the wild, unknown archetypes oracle deck. These are timeless messages, so you can come back to this video anytime you want a full week of guidance. Just let it play from the beginning, or use the timestamps to jump to the day that's calling you today. Thank you for being here. Let's begin. When the path ends, most people panic. But when my path ended, truly ended, after Sue died, something different happened. Because the next time I found a path, it wasn't in this world at all. It was in a forest I did not recognize, on a journey I had not planned, toward a gate I had never walked before. And the light I was carrying, it had already turned itself up before I even noticed. I found myself kneeling beside an old woman with silver grey hair, braided and bound. She never answered my questions, not one. She simply let me work with her, hands in the soil, breath steady, presence like a soft field around us. Her silence wasn't empty, it was belonging. Enough belonging that the small spark I'd carried for years, the ember that never quite died, suddenly brightened, not into a flame, but into a steady lantern light inside my chest. When I finally looked at her again, she turned her head, and I followed her gaze to a gate at the edge of her garden. A threshold, a path that had not existed a moment before. I asked if she was coming with me. She smiled, gentle, knowing, and spoke the only words she ever said to me. That isn't my path. And so I walked toward the gate alone. I stepped through the gate and into a white mist. No fear, no searching, just that pilgrim feeling of wonder. A quiet, steady openness that rises when you stop trying to choose a future and simply allow yourself to be led. And there, in that threshold place where the old road dissolves, he was waiting. Not for anyone, for me. The recognition was instantaneous, ancient and intimate. Like someone had been holding the door from the inside, knowing I would arrive when I was ready. And as he led me toward the fire, toward the quiet circle gathered there, I realized something. The lantern inside me wasn't lit by the gate. It wasn't lit by the guide. It wasn't lit by the journey. It was lit because I had finally stepped into the exact place that had been waiting for me all along. And in that place, the wick was turned up. And when I returned from that journey back into my ordinary body, this ordinary world, I could feel it. My breath was slower. My spine felt rooted. My muscles were soft. My presence settled. The body knows when the soul returns to its rightful path. It's the same way the earth held me on the day I was psychically fractured. How lying in the grass with dogs climbing all over me brought me back inside myself. The pilgrim's real path isn't outward. It's that return. The moment breath drops into the earth and the body says, here you belong. Most people think the path ends because they've done something wrong, but the pilgrim knows the truth. Sometimes the path ends so you can finally step into the mist where your real guide is waiting. Sometimes the road disappears so the lantern inside you can rise to its full brightness. Sometimes the threshold appears because the old life is over and the new one cannot begin until you make that first quiet, wandering step. Whisper with me. I return to my body. I feel my heart and mind align. I let time soften. I step into the moment. And type below to anchor this intention. I step into the moment. Let's take a good look at this card now, shall we? The pilgrim actually appears to be upside down on this card, which is interesting in itself. It's an interesting image. At first it looks like lots of the colours are what grab you, and then you have a look at the black and the white and you realise there's actually a mountain and the pilgrim's actually upside down and he has only one eye. Very interesting imagery. And that burst of colours, the yellow, the orange and the green with the red around the outside, we're dealing with the energy centres from here down. There's so much in spiritual communities. It's felt that, I know when I first started studying spirituality, it was all about the heart and the throat and the third eye. Open your third eye, open your third eye, open your crown. But there was never any work done with these lower energy centres. And they are imperative. We can't fully open the upper three until the lower three are healed. When the lower three are healed, the heart starts to open. When the heart starts to open, the others can start to open. But I'm digressing, I'm sorry. Just giving off the information that's coming to me in divine flow. The pilgrim. It's a lonely walk. It's a walk that we can only do alone. And the pilgrim comes to tell us that it's not out there, it's what's in here. It's a message I say all the time. It's what's in here. It's Yeshua's message. Go within. The kingdom of heaven is within. We reach divine consciousness, universal love, by going within. It's how we connect to our soul. But until we're fully in our bodies, fully embracing the animal that we are and all of our humanness, we cannot open our hearts and embody our souls fully. We can do a cheap copy of it, but it's always going to feel like something's just not quite there. You haven't quite got it. It's not quite in your grasp. When you can embody it, life just flows. Thank you for joining me today. May you return to your body. Feel your heart and your mind align in coherence. Allow time to soften and to step fully into the moment. You're not lost. Even if it feels like you're walking through the rubble of all of the selves you've been, you're not lost. From the moment you arrived in this body, you carried a seed, a living intelligence that has been quietly shaping your life from the inside out. Most of us only realize it when the shell begins to crack, and that cracking doesn't feel mystical. It feels human. It feels messy. It feels like grief, confusion, intensity, the sense that something is happening in me and I don't know what it is. You were born carrying a blueprint, not of a perfect life, but of a true one. A life that would demand that you come home to yourself. And the strange thing is, we often notice the seed most not in spiritual places, but in unexpected moments that hit us sideways. For me, some of my early cracks came through stories, through imagery, through something I felt in my bones before I could name it. The first time I heard certain words of Yeshua, not the dogma built around him, but the actual living, breathing essence of what he meant, something ancient in me stirred. Like remembering a language I once knew. Another time when I was watching The Matrix, over and over and over again, because something in that story was speaking directly to the part of me that knew that I was asleep and wanted so desperately to wake. And Avatar, the original. I watched it multiple times because I could feel there was a message of unity, of embodied connection that my heart was aching to touch again. These were not hobbies. They were early tremors, the seed shifting inside me. And then there are the cracks you don't choose, the ones that take you to your knees, the ones that completely rearrange you. For me, some of the deepest openings came through pain, through childhood trauma that felt unbearable, through losing my daughter during labour, through losing my beloved wife. For a long time, I saw those as tragedies, as punishments, as wounds too great to ever understand. I felt like I had done something wrong. But slowly, quietly, something in me began to understand that these were not tests that were sent to break me, but initiations that were calling me inward. Nudges from the seed itself, guiding me back to the truth already living inside my body. Pain did not come to destroy me. Pain came to awaken me. When the seed cracks, it doesn't feel like enlightenment. It feels like rawness, tenderness, like your skin is too thin and like your heart is too close to the surface. It feels like the wind touches you differently and like old ways of being suddenly hurt. Like the world you built no longer fits. It feels like being softer and stronger all at the same time, as if the shell is dissolving and the truth inside is finally allowed to breathe. You're not failing. You're revealing the part of you that's always been here. There is an ancient memory inside all of us, older than our earliest pain, older than our lineage, older than our names. It speaks in quiet ways, in intuition, in dreams, and the ache that we carry for a life that feels more real. This memory is called the daimon, the genius, the acorn Hillman wrote about, the pattern inside you that already knows what you came here to grow into. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply waits for the moment your life opens enough for you to feel it. Some call it destiny. Some call it guidance. Some call it the kingdom within. Today, we call it the seed. And if life feels like it's collapsing, if everything familiar is dissolving, if you're shedding identities faster than you can replace them, this is not regression. This is timing. Your seed opens when you are ready, not when your life is tidy. You're not behind. You're right on time. Just have a real quick look at this. It's simple. We've got a little pearl in the center, which, pearls are made through irritation. So it's talking about the irritation that causes the seed to crack. And this is all of the layers that have to crack before we come home to ourselves. And before you go, I want to invite you into one slow breath into your body, the soil of your becoming. Just feel this with me. You have never been lost. You've been breaking open. And if you want to anchor this moment, you can whisper with me. My seed is cracking open. And type your intention below. I am remembering who I am. Not for me, but to mark this moment for yourself. And if something inside you stirs as you hear this, if you can feel that inner thread tugging, the one that says, I think it's my time, trust that. This lunar cycle, I have 2 exclusive spots for unbinding the thread with Merran. A 6-week intimate, intensive for the ones who can feel their seed cracking open. If that quiet yes is moving in your body, message me now to claim your place. You're not lost. Your seed is cracking open. There comes a moment in your life when you realize the village that raised you was never meant to contain you. It was only ever going to be the starting point, the soil you pushed through on the way to your own sky. And sometimes that village doesn't bless your becoming. It fears it. Sometimes the people who are meant to protect you become the very ones who clip your wings. This is a story about that. My story. And maybe yours too. This is the story of the village. I grew up being the girl my mother warned me against. Not because I was rebellious or wild. There's a little bit of that in there. But because I was intuitive, open, hungry for things that lived outside her paradigm. She didn't have language for that. She called it dangerous. I still remember being 14. I'd bought my first deck of tarot cards in secret, not to summon anything dark, but because something in me, something ancient, recognized a truth inside those symbols. A language older than scripture, older than fear. I hid them like they were sacred. And one afternoon, I came home and they were gone. Years later, I learned that she had gone through my room while I was at school, rifled through my drawers, invaded the only space that was truly mine, and found the deck that she didn't even know I'd bought, and burned it. Burned it. Likely holding the cards at arm's length. So the evil wouldn't touch her, believing that the reason I was questioning everything was because of the cards, some evil that was somehow inside the cards, not because she and my father weren't honouring their side of the very scripture they held over me. The scripture they quoted says, "Children, obey your parents," Ephesians 6:1. But the part they never mentioned, the part they quietly skipped, is the very next line. Parents, do not provoke your children. Ephesians 6:4. Do not break their spirits. Do not cross their boundaries. Do not demand a respect you do not know how to give. I remember the day I read that. I realized the honor that I was extending was meant to be mutual, and it wasn't. So I stopped offering it blindly. That was the day the seed cracked. Not out of rebellion, but out of truth. When you outgrow the village, they don't celebrate you. They worry, judge, warn, shame. Because your expansion threatens the walls they still live within. You suddenly become too much, too sensitive, too spiritual, too questioning. But all that's really happening is this. Your soul is refusing to shrink anymore. You're outgrowing the container that could never hold the fullness of you. I didn't know that then. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was the reason they couldn't love me fully. But now I know better. Some of us are born with blueprints that terrify small villages because we carry medicine that exposes what those villages cannot face. And then, years later, my Sue died. And our village vanished overnight. All those people who said they loved us, supported us, believed in covenant and community, most of them disappeared the moment that I needed them most. There I was, newly shattered, newly widowed, standing in the ashes of everything we'd built, alone, no map, no mirrors, no belonging, just grief and wilderness. But what I didn't know then was that the wilderness is where people like us finally hear our own voice. When the village leaves you, life is telling you you're ready to find the path they could never walk with you. You didn't leave the village because you're broken or rebellious or sinful or lost. You left because staying was killing something essential. You left because the truth inside you grew louder than their fear. You left because your soul refuses to live under a ceiling. And because every person who is meant to live awake must eventually walk themselves out of the paradigm that tried to contain them. Your leaving wasn't abandonment. It was initiation. If you're listening to this and something inside you is stirring, that quiet, ancient recognition, the one that says, this is me, this is my story, this is why I've always felt different, then hear me. You did not do anything wrong. You are not cursed. You are not lost. You are not betraying your family, your faith, or your past. You are simply returning to the truth of who you are. Some seeds crack in darkness. Some seeds crack in grief. Some seeds crack in fire. But crack they must. Because what you're becoming can't fit back into the village you came from. Whisper with me. May I trust the path that opens beneath my feet. And right below to anchor this intention, I trust the path opening beneath my feet. And if this lands in your bones, if you feel the thread inside you pull, the one that's been waiting for someone to name what you've lived, I want you to know I have two exclusive spots open right now for Unbinding the Thread with Merran, my 6-week, deeply somatic, one-to-one journey for women who are unraveling old village stories and reclaiming the truth beneath them. If you feel that stirring inside you, message me. Claim your place. The wilderness is where your power returns, but you don't have to walk it alone. Let's have a really good look at this card. When I look at this, to me, this talks about a lot of angst. I see angst. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's water, emotion, pretty rough looking. Either that or else it's half filled with sardines. And there's like a ring on the water. Someone's reaching for it and pulling it towards themselves. Their own ring of life. Arrows go round in one way. With the big mountain. And it kind of even though it's called the village, it does speak about being on your own, about finding that strength within yourself to walk alone and to truly meet the essence of who you are without shame, with love, acceptance, and complete allowance, regardless of what village you've come from. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this has reached some place deep inside your heart and helped you realize that you are perfectly okay as the beautiful, messy human that you are. Much love to you. May you claim your place in yourself. There is a small, radiant part of you that never quite learned how to stay here. Some of us carried that memory with us longer than others. The memory of where we came from, the lightness, the peace, the vastness that felt like home. And for a while, the world still felt magical, soft, shimmering, familiar in a way we couldn't explain. But then the world happened. The first knocks of density arrive so early. Wet nappies, cold air against newborn skin, teething pain, scraped knees, the shock of being left to cry because someone believed it was good for you. These aren't dramatic wounds, but for a soul who remembers lightness, every one of them lands like a tiny betrayal. Still, the magic lingered. I remember looking at my own hands as a child, mesmerized by them. The smooth skin, the tiny lines, their miracle of mechanical movement. I remember thinking, how is this mine? I felt like a visitor inside a miracle of a body. And I remember the nights, lying awake, small and silent, staring through the window at the glittering sky, asking out loud for someone to come and take me home. Not from despair, simply from remembering. The stars felt like a doorway. They felt like home. And I listened to them like a prayer, waiting for something familiar to speak back. But childhood only lets you carry the memory so far. At some point, the density wins. Not because we're weak, but because this world is heavy. You learn to stop talking to stars. You learn to stop staring at your hands and wonder. You learn to be appropriate, contained, manageable. You learn to tuck the eternal child away, the part of you who still remembers joy without reason. And when the ache of that forgetting gets too loud, we numb. Some of us numb with substances, some with busyness, some with caretaking, and some with performing. And some of us, like me, numb with both alcohol and love. I turned to alcohol so I didn't have to feel how alone I really was. And I turned to addictive relationships, that classic empath and narc cycle, where you love too much, give too much, have no boundaries, and confuse intensity for intimacy. Because when the soul is starving, any hint of aliveness feels like salvation. But it isn't. It's just another way to escape the body. And that is the real wound of those of us who never felt like we belonged here. We spend years trying to get back to the lightness that we remember without ever learning how to bring that lightness into the body we're actually living in. The turning point only comes when the escaping stops. When you stop trying to fly back to the stars and instead let the stars come down into you. When you realize the eternal child, that luminous, untouchable part of you, was never meant to hover above your life. She was meant to be embodied within it. This is the moment your real life begins, where the soul finally empties the body it chose. Not hovering above it, not abandoning it, not numbing or clinging or bargaining, but inhabiting it fully, tenderly, bravely. And when she lands, truly lands, the addictions just fall away. Not through discipline, but because you no longer need an escape route. You feel peace. You feel grounded. You feel joy that is soft and steady rather than manic or borrowed. You feel love, not because someone else is giving it to you, but because you finally feel the truth of what you are. This is embodiment. This is healing. This is belonging, real belonging, the kind that starts from the inside. And this is what I guide women through. The soul entering the body again. The eternal child returning. The star remembering she came here to shine through skin, not escape it. If you feel the ache of this, if something in you is whispering, it's time. I have 2 spaces open right now for a 6-week deep embodied initiation with me. A return to yourself, a landing, a beginning. Whisper with me. I return to myself, and type it below to anchor it into your energy bodies. This is why you've always felt like you don't belong here. Not because you weren't meant to be here, but because you hadn't arrived yet. And you're ready now. Take a really good look at this card. Oh. You know, I see reminiscence of the sun card and the tarot. With the rainbow and the sun, the hands of a child. The joy of rainbows. And that little light within, that spark of light, which is your eternal child, your divine light, your soul. So, thank you for joining me today. May you truly feel that feeling of returning to yourself. It's magical. It's wonderful. Words cannot describe it. The English language is not sufficient to describe it. But may you feel that feeling. There's a part of you you've been afraid to meet, not because it's dark, but because it's too alive, too vast, alive, intense, radiant, too divine for a human body that was taught to stay small. Most of us learned young that our joy was too loud, our passion too much, our bodies too expressive. We were taught to shut down the very place where the soul touches matter. And for me, that part opened in a way I never saw coming. I'm having trouble with my clothes today. There was someone who didn't awaken desire, but awakened aliveness, a kind of purity that made my whole body feel like a prayer. Just the brush of their presence lit every nerve, not sexual, but ecstatic, like my cells suddenly remembered what they were made of. I remember once telling them, I need us to slow down, because if you awaken this too fast, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold it. My body would lift into states of ecstasy just from the simplest touch, the simplest breath, the simplest closeness. It was overwhelming in the way lightning is overwhelming, a beautiful, unbearable, and completely outside the language we have for being human. And here's the truth that I didn't understand at the time. I wasn't too sensitive. I wasn't too intense. I was touching the divine, the real lover. The part of us that can feel source move through the skin. When that current opens, it's like becoming Aphrodite or Shakti or Sophia, not metaphorically, but literally becoming the place where creation pours itself into the world. There were moments I could feel energy shooting through my hands like lightning. Moments when my chest felt like it would split open from the sheer magnitude of love. Moments when I, a very human person, was suddenly the embodiment of something ancient and holy. The lover within you is the same. She is your own love reflected back at you, a love so intense it can feel impossible to contain. She makes you feel like a goddess, like Aphrodite, like Sophia, like Shakti, like the embodied divine itself. And yes, it can be frightening because it is so powerful. In the human body, it isn't trained for that. It shakes, it trembles, it burns, it reaches more, it reaches for more because the ego thinks it can grasp it and hold it and keep it. But you can't grasp the state. If your ego tries to own it, it disappears like smoke. This opening only stays when you let yourself become it without performing, without chasing, without trying to control it. That's why this part of us is so frightening. Not because it's sinful or because it's dangerous, but because it is too holy. Because it brings us face to face with what we really are. A soul wearing a body carrying source. Most of us shut it down. We learn to be afraid of our joy, of our sensitivity, of our capacity to feel that much life. I remember as a child being told, don't dance like that. Too suggestive, too much, too alive. And later, when I was giving birth, the intensity of my body moving, the primal rhythm of labour, being told that what I was doing was far too sexy. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with the aliveness of your body, nothing wrong with experiencing your senses fully, nothing wrong with your heart burning wide open. But that part of you, the lover, the ecstatic one, the one who can feel the wind as a blessing and the world as a lover, she's still inside you, waiting, not for someone else to awaken her, but for you to stop abandoning the places where your soul is the most alive. The thing about this part of yourself is she isn't meant to be kept small. She isn't meant to be hidden. She is the gateway to your own divinity, your own creative force, your own ecstatic aliveness. So here's what I invite you to do. Whisper it with me now. I stand in my sovereignty in the wilderness. And then type below, I stand in my sovereignty in the wilderness. Anchor her presence in your body. Feel it. Claim it. Because if you have been afraid of this intensity, this power, this love, now is your moment to meet her, to meet yourself. She has never been a flaw. She has always been the doorway. And if this lands in your bones, if the thread inside you is stirring, I want you to know I have 2 exclusive spots open for unbinding the thread with Merran, a deeply somatic 1-to-1 6-week journey for those who are ready to reconnect with the part of themselves that have been silenced, shamed, or feared. Message me now to claim your space and step into the wilderness of your own heart. You don't have to walk it alone. Let's take another look at this beautiful card. There's something so divine about swans, isn't there? It's just that bright light. It's pink, and it's yellow, and it's orange. It's calling on the heart, the sacral, and the solar plexus, and it's got the little pearl in its neck. They pop the pearl in so many of these. The lover. And it's nothing to do with sex. It's nothing to do with the act of sex. It's all to do with loving yourself. You know, it was a few years later I was reading Barbara DeAngelis' book. I can't remember which one, learning about soul contracts. And that's actually when I learned that this was my love that I had felt. It hadn't come from outside of me, it was coming from inside me and bursting out with so much force that it was frightening and exciting all at once. Thank you for joining me today. It's time to step out. It's time to let your light shine. It's time to open your heart to your soul and allow her to step fully into your body. Embody her. Come home to your body. We have work to do. Thank you for joining me today. May you stand in your sovereignty in the wilderness. If it feels like everything is cracking open right now, you're not imagining it. Stay here with me for a moment if you're in that tender, shaking space. There are seasons in a soul's life where something deep beneath the surface shifts and the ground you've been standing on starts to whisper, "This cannot hold you anymore." It rarely begins with a dramatic collapse. It starts as a tremor, a strange presence in the chest, a quiet knowing you're no longer meant to fit where you've been trying to fit. It feels like standing on a frozen lake and hearing the subtle, sacred sound of something ancient within you finally giving way. Not to harm you, but to free you. When I was very small, I remember watching my parents smile in church after a morning of shouting and fear. Everyone pretending, everyone holding their breath, everyone performing fine. And inside me, something just cracked. Not loudly, not violently, just a small, clean line of truth cutting through the facade. A part of me knew this is not what love looks like. This is not what God feels like. I wasn't even at school yet, but the soul knows before the mind does when something is out of alignment. Life gives us bigger cracks as we grow. At 24, when the sonographer said, "I'm sorry, your baby has no heartbeat," more or less. They were a bit more abrupt than that. Another fault line appeared before me. Moments where the world stops pretending. All that remains is the truth so sharp it takes the breath from your lungs. That rupture shattered me into a relationship with grief that stripped every illusion and left only what was real. Years later, losing Sue and the village that we built around us, another crack. Grief doesn't just break a heart. It breaks the structures built around it. It exposes who was real, who was present, and who was only ever there for the easy parts. And the ground beneath me split again, not to swallow me, but to wake me. What I've learned is this. Fault lines appear when the life you've been standing in is too small for the truth you are becoming. And right now, collectively, the entire world is vibrating with that same trembling. You can feel it. In the news, it's in the air. It's in the conversations that no longer feel right. It's in the old stories that no longer fit. Everything built on performance, illusion, control, or fear is starting to crack. Not because we're failing, but because truth is rising. Truth puts pressure on anything that hides it. And here's the part that no one tells you. The crack is not a threat. It's an invitation. It's how your soul opens a doorway where your mind refuses to move. It's how the divine says, you cannot live here anymore. Come deeper. Come truer. Come home. In Japanese kintsugi, I think I said that right, my apologies if I have just absolutely aborted the word. Broken pottery is mended with gold, not because the crack is shameful, but because the crack is where the object became more honest. Your crack is where you become more honest, more holy, more whole, more you. If you are in a fault line season right now, if it feels like everything is splitting or slipping or just no longer holding together, place your hand on your body and breathe. You're not breaking, you're awakening. The life built on the old self cannot carry the new one. The tectonic plates of your identity are shifting. The persona is collapsing. The soul is arriving. This is how rebirth sounds. If this transmission is stirring something in you, that hum in your ribs that says, yes, yes, this is where I am. Whisper this with me. I walk the crack with truth beneath my feet. And type it below to anchor this intention. You're not here to avoid the crack. You're here to walk through it into the life that is finally aligned with your soul. And if this transmission is stirring something in you, if you can feel the quiet pull inside your ribs, the one that says, this is me, this is where I am, I'm standing on the fault line of who I've been and whom I am becoming, then hear me. You do not have to walk this rupture alone. These cracks, the childhood ones, the grief ones, the identity ones, the ones opening right now in your life, they're doorways, but they are also initiations. And some initiations are too sacred, too tender, too tectonic to navigate without someone who has walked them before. If you're feeling that pull, that unmistakable, it's time rising in your chest, I want you to know I have 2 openings right now, just 2, for unbinding the thread. It's my 6-week, deeply somatic, one-on-one journey for souls who are moving through cosmic change and are ready to land in the truth of who they actually are. This work isn't surface level. It isn't mindset. It isn't performance. It is the kind of work that helps you walk the crack without collapsing. Let what's false fall away. Let what's real take root. Return to the body as your home and rise from the fault line with gold in your seams. If your soul is whispering yes, if you know these words are sprinkling directly into the place cracking open inside you, message me. Your next chapter doesn't start after the crack. It starts through it. And let's just take another look at this image. It's pretty basic. It's just a fault line, a crack in the earth. And I'm hearing Pink Floyd. When the crack appears under your feet, you're out of your breath and out of your mind. And your fear follows in behind you as you claw the thin ice. Sorry. So often lyrics come to me in the middle of a sentence. And I do think we've pretty much covered in today's transmission. The crack appears under your feet, and it's a decision point. Do I fall into the fear, or do I stand in my sovereignty and walk in faith? What do you choose? Tell me below. When grace finally finds you, it never arrives the way you think it will. Not as light, not as angels, not as a miracle parting the sky. Grace comes in a moment, the moment you finally break open enough to let it enter. For me, that moment came on the first anniversary of my daughter's death. It was the early hours of the morning, that hollow place between night and dawn, where grief echoes the loudest. I was lying in bed, crying from a depth inside me I didn't know a human body could hold. I felt like a wound with skin around it. I felt like a mother who had been erased. And then I heard her, clear, soft, certain. Mummy, you have to let me go. And I whispered back, I don't know how. I can't. Because she was my only child. She was the future I had already loved. But she said it again, gentle but unwavering. Mummy, you must. And the truth is, I wasn't releasing her for myself. I was releasing her so I wouldn't hold her back from wherever she was going next. And in the moment I finally, fully let her go, I expected to fall into a deeper darkness. But that isn't what happened. The instant I released her, in the very breath after surrender, I was filled with something else. A warmth, a presence, a soft, golden flooding of love that poured into every cell. It filled my heart and filled my body from there. It rose from inside like honey from the bones. Some call it divine grace. Some call it the nectar. Some call it the elixir that only appears when you stop fighting your own grief. All I know is this: one moment I was hollow, and the next I was home. Grace arrived in the exact space where I had opened, not before the breaking, not instead of the breaking, but through the breaking. And I want you to hear this. Grace is not earned. Grace is allowed. Years later, when Sue died, there was another kind of cracking, but it was nothing like before. It wasn't victimhood. It wasn't clinging. It wasn't a wound I wore like a banner. It was a void, a profound, horizon-wide emptiness that stripped me down to bone and breath. A kind of silence that felt older than time. A grief that rearranged the architecture of my life from the inside out. Losing a child breaks one part of you. Losing the woman you built a life with breaks another. They're not comparable. They are different blueprints, different futures, different forms of love, different forms of loss. Sue was my confidant, my companion, the one I thought I would grow old beside, the one who knew the inside of my mind without translation. Her death didn't give me grace in a single moment, like my daughter's voice did. It wasn't a golden flooding. It wasn't a divine warmth that rose from within. The healing I needed then was earth. I didn't fall open into the light. I fell downward into soil, into solitude, into the raw work of rebuilding a life from the ground up. I wasn't trying to outrun the grief. I was trying to understand it, trying to walk with it, trying to build something that could hold others through their own descents. And slowly, not overnight, not in a single breath, the crack began to close. The pieces of me that had shattered through both losses began to knit themselves back together, not returning me to who I was, but forming someone entirely new. Someone more rooted, more embodied, more connected to the living earth beneath my feet. Someone who shows up in the world today in a way I could never have shown up had my beloved lived. That is the nectar of this loss, the transformation that came not from magic, not from light, but from the long, patient work of becoming whole again. When we don't surrender, we cope, we numb, we overgive, we cling to the relationships that burn hot but leave us starving. We mistake intensity for love, attention for devotion, chaos for aliveness. But when we do surrender, even slowly, even imperfectly, the nectar returns, not as sweetness, but as medicine, as a rehydration of the soul. The nectar is the remembering that rises only after truth has stripped you bare. It came to me in the breath after my daughter told me to let go. And it came again years later in the small, steady ways the earth gathered me back after Sue. The nectar is not a cure. It's a returning. It comes when you stop gripping your wounds as proof of who you are and finally allow yourself to be changed by what you have lived. And this is what Mikado meant when he wrote, "Walker, there is no path. The path is made by walking." The nectar appears the moment you take even one step without carrying the old story like a weight. Not because the loss stops mattering, but because you stop using it as the reason you cannot live. And I need to say this clearly. The nectar also pours through my voice. I don't summon it, I don't call it in. It simply flows. When I speak with intention and when the space is open enough for grace to move through. People feel it when they listen. You may be feeling it now. That softening in your chest, the warmth behind your ribs, that loosening that isn't pain but recognition. If you feel it, it's because the nectar is already inside you. My voice only reminds you where you hid it. Grace doesn't arrive when life gets better. Grace arrives when you stop pretending you have to hold it all together. The nectar comes when you surrender the fight to be unbroken. Put your hand on your heart and breathe into this. I let myself be filled by what is trying to reach me. If that intention lands in your bones, write it in the comments to anchor it. And if you're in a season where you know the nectar wants to find you, but you don't yet know how to open, I have 2 places open for unbinding the thread. My 6-week one-on-one journey for women who are ready to let grace into the places they've been guarding. If you feel the pull, message me. You don't have to walk the path alone. You only have to take the step and let the nectar find you. I'm going to take another look at this card. To me, it almost looks like a cloud, like a storm. That's definitely how my heart felt before the nectar arrived. Someone reaching for that nectar inside, in the center of the storm. The way through is within. It's always by going within. If you're in that place where you are finding yourself feeling like a victim, moving into that place of surrendering that need, just releasing the person you love. It's just another one of the amazing mystical experiences that I've had. My daughter, a year after her birth death, coming to me and asking me to let her go, that I had to. In that moment that I did, when I felt so empty and so hollow, the divine grace, the universal love consciousness filled me completely. And there are no words to describe it. My wish for every one of you who is carrying the burden of grief, whose heart still feels like it's in 100,000 pieces, and you have no idea how to put it back together again. My wish for you is that you reach this place where you can let go. Let your loved one go, and may your heart fill with the grace of the divine in that moment of greatest emptiness. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a longer one. May you really feel the nectar within you as you walk through your day today. Have a beautiful, blessed day. I'll be back again tomorrow with another daily Sacred Soul message. Until then, Shlama.